Hi there, hope you're well. In this video I'm going to be stripping out my old router table, and in the process I want to explain just how simple a router table or a router bench like this one can be. So it's time for the old router bench, the router table, to be changed as part of the general makeover. This has been coming for a little while and it has been slightly delayed because of various things. Perhaps we'll get into that later on. This is probably going to be a longer video. In fact, we'll probably split it into two parts. This has all got to come out for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this whole thing has served me incredibly well, and every time it appears in one of the videos, as it did fairly recently, I always get questions about it. I always get questions about, you know, why it is where it is, how it works, what's under there, all that kind of thing. So I just want to go quickly through the basics of this bench and why I put it in this way. Now there's an entire workshop tour which I did way back. I think it's video number 066. I'll link that up down below if you're interested. That takes you through everything about why the benches are the way they are. But I put the router bench in here. In fact, I originally had it here with just a small 1/4 inch router just to do doors. Now that, bad idea, pro tip, bad idea putting a 1/4 inch router in a bench like this, because that sort of lunches itself eventually and always in the middle of a job. But it got me going and it got me started. And when I did put a bigger router in, I put a 1/2 inch router in a little bit further over, because it's almost exactly the halfway point between the walls of the workshop. It meant I could just about squeeze an 8-foot 2440 board through there if I needed to. Almost never needed to do that, but it's good to have the option, good to have the facility to do that if you do need to. So consider that carefully if you are building a router into a bench like this. Now this whole bench, this whole fence is just unbelievably basic. As you can probably see, I've just got the fence clamped on with simple screw clamps. They run in slots in the bench top here, and the fence itself is all homemade and all a bit of a mess because it's been hacked about and added to over the years. It's got an NVR switch built into the fence, so it's always to hand, and the router simply plugs into one end of it, and this powers up the whole thing. The router that's underneath the bench attaches through a cable here. The fence itself, certainly from the dust extraction point of view, I do get a lot of questions about this Y piece. This was a bit of a mistake, to be honest, and when I remake the new one, I will be changing this. Having these two Y pieces here means it's a very thin, barely 22mm, 7/8 of an inch hole in there. So whilst it's fine for things that make fine dust like MDF or plywood, for any sort of natural timber that might make splinters, that's a real bottleneck going into there. So I will have a single fatter pipe coming into the back of it. But other than that, the fence has done incredibly well. Obviously been a bit chewed about at this opening here, but that's fine. It does the job perfectly well. Now let me take that apart and we'll get into the bench itself. Before we open up this box of tricks, let me just explain one of the main reasons why I'm actually changing this. Over time, this subframe, which is just softwood nailed together, has sagged, so it's not as flat as it used to be. In fact, if I use a piece of string to demonstrate this, so hopefully you can see, obviously it's a little bit out at this end, but it's a lot out at this end. Now this bench was always a little bit lower than these ones on the left hand side, just so that I could slide things across more readily. But you can see if I put a level across there, just how much further that has actually dropped now. So basically over time, this whole thing has sort of sagged a bit, and it's probably worth remembering, it's 7.5 feet, 2250, something like that, long and unsupported in the center, so it's no real surprise. Oops. It's worth remembering as well that this was a multi-purpose bench. And in the center here we've got a couple of wells, as well as storing sawdust and my featherboards. I can actually put my Capex in there and the drill press, the pillar drill. The truth is though, I don't actually use those much these days. I use those a lot more when I was making a lot more cabinets and a lot more doors, and I've decided I don't really need that anymore. So the new bench is going to be a bit shorter because I don't need the length, and I value the floor space and the wall space a bit more. Let me open this up and show you what we've got inside. There's a couple of carefully placed and well countersunk screws in here, just keeping this down. And what we have under here is about as simple as it gets. That is a big old Triton router, simply bolted through onto a piece of MDF that's on a frame. That's literally all it is. No fancy inset plate or anything, just a simple router screwed through the MDF with a couple of washers on the other side to make sure it doesn't pull through. Just secured nice and flat and stable. Now you might be thinking that not having an inset plate in here presents a few issues, a few problems with setting the height and all that sort of thing. It really doesn't, but I think in order to show you that, I've got to actually clear out all the rubbish from under the bench. So while you watch me do that, I just want to say a huge thank you to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. Channel members won't generally be seeing this message or any other ads because one of the perks of membership is access to ad-free versions of the public videos. A weekly Week in the Workshop vlog style video where I chat about whatever's been going on that week with some behind the scenes and over the shoulder type video as well as discussions of future plans and projects. Channel members also receive a 20% discount on all 10-minute workshop products, whether that's the clamping guides or the soon to be announced loose tenonry. And they also have early access to those products too, which is probably why they're always in short supply. If any or all of that sounds like your kind of things, then come along and join us and be part of the 10-minute workshop team. We'd love to have you on board and taking part. Right, I think that's all done. How the heck did a sink get under there? Oh, that's better. Probably should have worn a mask. So what we've got under here is the big old Triton, the TRA001. That's the biggest half-inch Triton router that Triton make. It's a great piece of kit. I've had it a long time, been slung under the bench here for forever. As you can see, I've got 3 layers of MDF to try and sort of make sure there's no deflection in that top. And the great thing about the Triton, one of the things I liked about it, is that it's designed for above table adjustment, although this is an older model, so you don't get access to the uppy downy movement. When you plunge it fully, the collar does come up through the surface here, and you can get your spanner on that. So what I normally do, if I'm trying to make, say, a 12mm half-inch cut, a couple of bits of scrap on either side, go underneath, you can plunge that up until you can see it's deeper than you need it to be, and then there's a fine adjuster on it. You can just back that down carefully with another little piece over the top. And you just back that down. And there you go. And of course, if you do want to change bits or take the bit out of the table completely, it's easy enough to do because the collet comes right up. Take the bit out, drop the router down, and again, you've got your bench back. Now you might be looking at this and saying, well, that's all very well if this is such a fantastic machine, and it is. The Triton TRA001 is a solid workhorse. This above table adjustment thing is not exclusive, by the way. I'm pretty sure the Trend T11 has it, and I think some of the festival routers do too. Triton happens to be the one that I've got. So why am I getting rid of it? And the truth is, I genuinely was going to put the old Triton back in the new bench. The bench has got to change because this is, it's all tired and old and, feeling its age, as we all are. And I think I said before, I really don't need a router bench this long. I value the floor space and the wall space here more than I value a bench of that size. But the simple truth is, there's some legislation happening. It's been on the cards for a while, and it's coming in to play, I think, in December of this year, which affects how handheld routers are used in static situations like in tables and in benches. And I thought I'd try and get ahead of the curve on that by using a milling motor and a lift. And, you know, hands up, the guys at SatterShop have provided this stuff for me. We'll talk more about that in the next video. But that's basically the only reason. I would have been very happy to continue to use the Triton router in this, or the Trend T11 that I've got up there. You know, I'm not a router expert. I just happen to have a few. But I've been offered this SatterShop one, so I'll give that a shot. But there we are. I think that's as much as I want to say about this for this video. I've got to pull this apart, obviously, and get everything off the wall, get everything a good clean out. Inevitably, a bit more painting to be done. And then I can start building the new bench. I'm undecided at the moment whether I want to have drawers down this end or not. But anyway, we'll come to all of that in the next video. But that's it for this one. I'll call it a day there. Thank you ever so much for taking a look. Thank you, as always, to my amazing Patreon supporters and YouTube members. But that's it for this one. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.